I didn't do it. He wasn't going to make it, so
For the whole thing?
Well,
I didn't think so.
Bob,
Okay.
did you do that?
you toasted that.
Break
Gonna
out the
gavel?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Trying to bring order.
right.
All right.
Would be Allison.
I call to order the Monday, June 5th, 2023 meeting of Cumberland Town Council. Prior to this meeting, we did have a neighborhood meeting regarding traffic in the Valhalla neighborhood area. Before we move into the normal business, this is my last meeting as chair and serving on the town council. This is a opportunity that I think councilors don't always get. The way our charter reads, you, once you have lost an election, you're never to be seen again on the dais, because immediately we swear in the next councilors. So with this being the end of my term, I just want to say, and it's lovely that there's people here tonight too to say it to, I strongly encourage, if service is something that is important to you and a kind of a thing that gets you up, I strongly encourage raising your hand to serve the community on the town council. This has been one of the most rewarding experiences. These people are amazing. We do not always agree politically, right? We come from different backgrounds, different kind of experiences that led us to Cumberland, but I always feel respected and heard by the people up here, and so I strongly encourage you to be part of this group, of this kind of group of contributors to the community that really are just here to listen and try to do what's right for the town. You may not always agree with it, but I can tell you at least these 6 other people I've served with have served with integrity, and it's a great group to be a part of. I hope Cumberland will have me back at some point. I was elected to 3 years, and so I'm serving my 3 years. But I just want to say thank you for voting for me, if you voted for me. If you didn't, I appreciate you being kind and patient with me. And I want to thank my fellow counselors for teaching me, to our town manager, to Brenda. This has been a wonderful experience, and I will always treasure it. So thank you.
You're not gonna get out of here tonight without some comments, so.
Great. First order of business is our approval of minutes for our May 22nd, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor? Thank you. I should note, unfortunately, Councillor Kopp is stuck in traffic, literally, on a work call, and so that is why he is not here tonight. I'm trying not to take it personally. Next is our manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you guys hear this?
Yeah, oh,
You can hear it?
yeah.
Okay. I just want to say 2 quick things. Our meeting tonight proceeded with the meeting with Hedgerow Drive neighbors, and that went pretty well, I thought. I thought we came up with some really good ideas, and I'm looking forward to presenting those to the council in the next month or so. But one of the big things here in Cumberland is like my favorite day of the year is Memorial Day. The parade, the townspeople that turn out, the thousands of people that participate in all the things we do that day, between the fun run for the young kids to the foot race to the parade itself. And then this year we had over 30 new names installed onto the recognition monument. So I'm just putting out a plea again. We do it every 5 years. We add more names. So if you consider Cumberland your hometown, if you served in the military, we want to recognize you and get you up on that wall. We have probably, the way it's going right now, probably 25 more years of space left before we have to add more space to the monument. So It's pretty amazing. I think we're over close to 900 now, Brend. It's been an amazing, amazing project. So it's very proud when you look at that and you go around that monument and see names from as far back as the Civil War all the way to present time. So whoever you know that's not on that monument, please, please, please ask them to consider being recognized, because it's a very important a part of our community. I'll give Glenn Hutchins all the credit in the world. He basically said we have to do something more special for our veterans, and he didn't want to have a memorial. He really wanted more of a recognition monument. And when that group got together, I think Robert Story, Harlan Story, Steve Moriarty, Glenn Hutchins, there was some really, really big talent on that group that went out hard and identified as many veterans as they could. So it's always a very, very proud day to be a Cumberland resident and to see the number of people that come out and recognize our veterans each year. And special thanks to Dan Small, our fire chief, and Whitney Miller, our communications director, who put up with all our headaches and all our miscues and all our missteps and all our messed up itineraries that we try to we do our best to make it difficult for both of them, but they have always shined, and they've done a great job keeping the parade organized and keeping it a community parade. And I hope that continues because that's what's so special. It's all about the veterans, and we'd love to see that continue. So that's all I have, and turn it back to you.
Allison, real quick. Bill, I just want to say thanks, because the one thing the Memorial Day Parade has never lost focus is our veterans. And you know, you and I have talked before, and I know Brenda went through it. You know, my dad's name's on there, and as injured as he was coming home from World War II, he never wanted anything. He just wanted to come back home, go to work. And this little piece of recognition is what they deserve. I got a kid in 2 years, he'll be eligible when he gets out of the military. And I'll be proud when his name goes up. But the town of Cumberland, its council, and people like your dad just never forgot our veterans, and it's wonderful. You guys just do such a great job.
There's a lot of people behind it, and thank you, Mike, for sharing. And hopefully someday you'll be able to share again the story about your dad, because I think that was a very moving council meeting. I'll never forget it. So, thanks.
Thank you. Next is public discussion. Public discussion is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Rebuttal comments will be limited to 2 minutes. Public discussion topics may be brought up again under new business for further council discussion. Is there anyone here this evening who would like to comment on something not on the agenda? Please, sir. Please just state your name and address.
Yeah, I'm John Painter, 445 Greeley Road Extension. And I know we're going to be talking about road intersections tonight, especially the one up on Blanchard and Skillen. And I just wanted to add 2 other intersections that needs the council to consider. They're very dangerous. One is Tuttle Road and Middle Road. That needs a 4-way stop desperately. Every time I go through that intersection, I'm finding people don't know whether they're to turn left or go straight through, who has the right-of-way, because it's a 2-way, and people kind of expect a 4-way stop there, especially people from away, people going out to the fair that get off the highway and stuff like that. That's one. The other one is where I live. Greeley Road crossing Route 9 is a very dangerous intersection. The line of sight, excuse me, is very poor. When I'm coming out of the extension looking to the right, there's forsythia bushes that grow every year, and I call up every year to Public Works and say, can we do something? And they prune the bushes, and then they grow out again. But people go through the village and usually obey the speed limit in town, but as soon as they get up past, the post office area, they start to speed up, and they enter North Yarmouth, usually going very fast, and they come around that curve, and I will be there, and other drivers will be there at the extension trying to either cross Route 9 or take a left on Route 9. And I've had so many close calls because I live there and I use that intersection every day. So I just ask, I'm just here. I've got a couple more comments later, but I'm just here to ask the council to consider those intersections. And thank you, Allison, for your service.
Actually, I know the Middle and Tuttle intersection is one that is on the radar. Maine DOT has actually made some recommendations in line with what you're asking for as they're doing construction. So more to come on that one. I live at the end of Greeley Road Extension, so I empathize. I remember when we were looking to buy the house, that was the one comment my parents said to me was, "Are you sure turning out of this Greeley Road Extension?" So I know that curve. I know we gun it. You know, you look twice, and then you just go with that corner. So empathize there. I don't know history with that corner. Bill, if there's anything you would comment on there, or just kind of take note. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Moving to legislation and policy, 23-057, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on the recommendation of Goral Palmer Engineers regarding the intersection of Blanchard and Skillen Roads. So just a reminder, at our last meeting, we went through the engineer's report. They were here to answer questions. We heard some comments from the public, and kind of the council consideration was to not take action that night so that we could kind of process and then be able to kind of again notice and let people again come to this evening's conversation where the council could consider action. Just a reminder, the engineer's recommendation, this was the third time we've had such a study done by consultants. Each of the 3 times, the recommendation has been to keep the stop sign on Skillen Road that tees with Blanchard, and then to remove the stop sign that is kind of coming from Blanchard Road Extension, so that it would become just a 1 stop sign intersection instead of the 2 stop sign intersection. Any kind of initial comments, questions from the council from last meeting? Or just open it, ask for some public? I will open it up for public comment. Yep.
Hi, it's me again, John Painter, 445 Greeley Road Extension. I would like to advocate for the change that the engineers recommend, and that is the 1 stop sign when Skillen meets Blanchard Road. And I just think it'll make it a lot safer. I did watch the video from last meeting, and I know Ron Kopp had a fair argument that it's always been this way, and it dates way back to when they were dirt roads and farm roads and so forth. But things have changed, and it's not safe the way it is, in my opinion. And I'll also point out that if we create a T intersection, the through road on the T has the same name going straight through. So I'm advocating for the single stop sign and the T intersection. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Powell, and I live at 304 Blanchard Road, about 2 doors from that intersection. And I remember the last time that the town went through this and what the recommendations were from the engineering firm. It didn't make sense to me then, and it doesn't make sense to me now. Many, many houses have been built on Blanchard Road Extension. There are developments that have gone in since we first moved there nearly 39 years ago. There is a lot more traffic on Blanchard Road, and the speed at which that traffic moves is incredible. It's very difficult for us to pull out of our driveway on what used to be considered a rural road. People start with the stop sign gone at Blanchard Road Extension onto Blanchard Road. They start and they're speeding, and without that stop sign there, my fear is that they're just going to continue to fly through. And, you know, I'm just not sure what is to be gained by taking the stop sign away, but I know what could be lost, and I have great fear of that. So I hope you'll consider the safety and the safety of the people there, the speed at which the cars go. If, I know that the road speed limits are more of a state issue, I believe, but if you vote to eliminate that stop sign, I would strongly suggest you look at the speed limit there. And maybe think about speed bumps on a rural road. Thank you.
I should know one outcome that has already happened. I know, oh, there you are. So please correct me if I go wrong. There was some confusion of what the speed limit is, if it was 35, if it was 30, and we have confirmed, and I believe a new sign is up to confirm that the speed limit is 30 miles per hour. So live in that area. Hopefully you've seen that new sign up as well. Anyone else?
I'm Brenda Sherwin. I live at 292 Blanchard Road, which is right on the intersection. I see traffic every day. I'm outside every day. Traffic is too fast. We have a lot of people that sort of roll. Well, actually, my neighbor who was going to come tonight has to work. We sat there and talked for 20 minutes. One person actually stopped at that stop sign, and it was his wife. Everybody else rolled right through it. I think it's a danger if you take down the stop sign. This is not a normal T. Yes, the road is Blanchard, but the traffic flow is around the corner. So you've got to and now we're going to put in more housing maybe. On Blackstrap, you're going to have more people using that. It's a cutoff to get to Yarmouth. Our road is a cutoff to get down to, Skilling's, Blanchard, down into Yarmouth. If you take down that stop sign, there's going to be more accidents. As you can tell, how many accidents have we had in the last 3 years? One, and that was my fence. Some young kid at night going too fast was going just too fast and tried to overcompensate and hit my fence. So, you should keep it the way it is, in my opinion.
Bruce, if you're going to go, go ahead, Mr. Eagle.
Well, hello. Thanks for your service. This will probably be the last time you ever hear from me about a stop sign again, which may be good news for some of you. My name is Chris Nagel. I live at 76 Orchard Road, and I have been advocating for this for now 7 years. And I'm glad Bill put this up, because I want to just point something out that's interesting. So I assume most of you are orientated. This is the intersection we're talking about. And this is Blanchard Road becoming Blanchard Road Extension, and this is Orchard Road. I live up here. Anyway, notice how Blanchard Road passes a T road, and there's a stop sign at the T, but you don't have to stop if you're on Blanchard Road. Here's another place it comes into what's actually a Y. Again, they don't have to stop there. And then we have this intersection over here that all of a sudden people have to stop for. It does not make sense. I would observe that this intersection is the mirror image of that intersection, in that more of the traffic goes this way than goes that way. Just like more of the traffic goes this way than goes that way. But yet there's no stop sign here. So, this is correct, that's correct. According to the engineer, that's incorrect. And I also want to point out, most of you know, if you're heading out of North Yarmouth Village and you want to go to Gray, or you want to go up to, Pineland, you come to the intersection where Route 115 takes a left and Route 231 begins. It's the same exact intersection as traveling north on Blanchard Road. The state controls it, and people traveling down the lesser traveled 231 do not have to stop. That's what you guys are making them do. So this is the only intersection of its type. A question I wanted to raise, I know MDOT has some kind of control over this section of road. I don't know if it's a state aid road or not, but if it is a state aid road, has MDOT approved this intersection? I don't know. And if you don't know, I think something you ought to look into. So my summary of the traffic engineers is they found no reasonable explanation for the stop sign. And they identified two distinct kinds of accidents that could occur and ultimately, eventually will occur, which is when people driving northbound come up to this left turn and they don't know there's a stop sign, so they hesitate. And people behind them that don't know what they're doing could rear end them. Just this week, I sat there for 15 seconds while someone in front of me who had the right of way had a standoff with someone at a stop sign for 15 seconds. The person at the stop sign knew they weren't supposed to go, and the person in the road. It's crazy. They also described the accident that can happen that I think he witnessed, where someone's at the stop sign, they stop. They don't know the people coming don't have to stop, so they just proceed out. Those are identified accidents that could occur because of the design, if you believe the traffic engineer, which is my assumption. So this is a point I want to make more strongly than has been made, because I think it gives you at least a third option. You guys have liability. The town of Cumberland has liability. And you heard what the engineer said when he's in court as an expert witness and some town, city, or whatever hasn't followed the rules, they're in big trouble. He's had to testify to that. I hope you heard that. Because let's say you don't do anything and we leave it the way it is, and the neighbors are happy. And 5, 10, 20 years down the road, there's an accident because of this intersection being poorly designed. You guys are dead, okay? You might as well give the keys to the, I mean, you're not dead, but you're gonna owe a lot of money, which raises the issue for me, if I was responsible town representative, have you talked to your liability insurance carrier? Because most of those policies, when you read the fine print, say if you intentionally break the rules, we're not covering you. Have you talked to the town lawyer to see if this is a good idea, or what the town liability policy says? Because all due respect to those of you that wanna, ain't broke, don't fix it, you're exposing the town to considerable liability, and I hope you understand the consequences. So, the basic, for those, well, let me just say this. There is 4 negative impacts for stop signs that I have identified. Number 1, they burn gasoline more than people that don't have stop signs. And I thought we're trying to reduce carbon emissions in this world. Number 2, gas costs money, costs a lot of money. So you're making people waste money. Number 3, you're putting wear and tear on engine, brakes, and transmissions that doesn't need to happen. I'm not a car junkie, but I do know every time a car stops and starts, it takes a little bit of a hit. And I did some math like Mike did. Traffic report says every time I go through that stop signs, I lose 5 seconds of my life. And 1 out of 100 times is a good reason for it. So I did a little math. At 12 stops a week, that's about 1.5 a day. Long story short, I've been sitting at that stop sign for 14 hours since I moved there 16 years ago. And I hope I don't have to keep stopping. And that's just me. This is a connector road, as you know, and someone else said. Connects West Cumberland to North Yarmouth, parts of Gray, whatever. Some people go to Freeport that way. All those people coming back that way. Anyway. So let's talk about the ain't broke, don't fix it argument for a minute.
Just a minute, Mr. Nagel.
Okay, it's a safe intersection, but it's broken because the engineer said the stop sign will cause accidents. It would be safer. It's also broken because traffic intersections serve two purposes: safety and efficiency. This intersection will be safer without the stop sign, and it will be far more efficient. So right now it's inefficient, therefore it is partly broken. And I won't dwell on this point because I thought I made it last week. I don't know who people are, whether it's the public or the counselors, that think you know more than traffic engineers. I'll leave it at that. Let the neighbors decide. I don't think that's good traffic policy. It's a 35-mile-per-hour road. I live on that kind of a road, the same road. It's not a safe place to walk, and I don't do it. And I think the neighbors' concern has been about the speed of traffic and stories about how fast people go. Well, your traffic engineer studied that, so we don't need to worry about anecdotes. The average speed is 35 miles an hour. That's the posted speed limit. That's not a problem. The 85 percentile speed, which is the speed at which almost no one goes faster, is 41 miles an hour. Those are hard facts based on real data. And I don't know about you, but when I drive around Cumberland, if it's a 35-mile-an-hour road, people go 40. That's my universe. And if you come across someone going 35, it seems unusual. So my point is, yes, people go fast on this road, but no faster than anywhere else. This is not a speedway. That's science. Almost done. Again, I'm glad to hear the speed limit's being reduced to 30 miles an hour. I have not yet seen any new signs, but maybe I missed it. Because I was thinking if someone stops out here and turns left, and all of a sudden this brand new sign, maybe for years it's got flashing lights, says 30 miles an hour, they're not going to accelerate. So I just would request that you vote to remove the stop sign, and I respect that you may not. And if that's the majority, then I surely hope before you put this to bed, you consult with the people that you should consult with about your liability and our liability. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Painter again, Greeley Extension, and I just wanted to say a possible compromise would be a three-way stop. And I know the engineer mentioned that. I know that this gentleman here wouldn't like that too much because of wear and tear on his car, and I understand that and appreciate that. But for safety and speed, the three-way stop might be the best option if people are flying through a T intersection. He does make a valid point that all the other intersections up the road are T intersections. Maybe we ought to follow that. And the other thing is there's that yellow sign with the curve arrow. That needs to go because it's going to be now replaced by a T intersection yellow sign. That's it for me. Thank you all.
This is different than this one. This is a combined, this is a dead end.
Can you just go to that
To the
microphone?
micro- You can use
Those
the
are
mouse.
dead end streets. They're not coming from Gray there. It's woods. So there are finite people there. This intersection is very different than those other intersections with the stop sign.
Bruce Sherwin, 292 Blanchard. I live right at the intersection that's being discussed of Blanchard and Skillen. My first question is, I did send an email to the town council and the town manager. Did everyone receive it and read it? Town council? That's a fair question. Can I get an answer?
Yes.
Mr. Vale?
Yes.
Everybody did read it? Okay, then I'm not going to read it again, but I am going to use it to highlight how I'm going to talk about things. I was planning to read it again. So the first thing is the engineers, in their recommendation, in their discussion, talked about that stopping traffic with that stop sign, stopping traffic in any way contributes to more accident prone. I contend that there will be more people stopping to turn left than stop at that stop sign if the stop sign is removed. They will line up there at times. People will get impatient. Actually, the stop sign, when he talked about the recent thing of somebody sitting there and wondering, a little face-off as to whether to turn left or whether the stop sign's going to keep coming, that is positive for safety. In an intersection like that, you want people stopping and thinking about what is the right thing to do. So that contributes to the safety. Also, again, back to the stopping by the engineers. There's going to be a lot of people stopping left. That doesn't even count many of the events at the fairs, like the fair itself and the yard sale and stuff. The traffic is very heavy at those times. That's going to line them up. A three-way stop would line up a lot of cars there. In my opinion, as I wrote in the email, it will eventually require a third lane there to go for people that want to keep going straight on Blanchard to not have to wait for people to turn left. It will require more expense. And I think the town council knows my stance on more expense. We don't want it. Our taxes are already too high. So back to the recommendation. They recommended that stopping creates more accidents. We're going to have more stopping with people stopping to turn left and wondering, they're going to start taking chances when they feel the pressure behind them, the traffic building up. They're going to take chances crossing in front of people coming that are driving too fast. I'd be very surprised that 41 is the average, that people drive through there faster than 41, in my opinion. I think the police ought to take a look at that intersection. Oh, so on to the second thing that the engineers recommended. They talked about that it's a non-conforming. I didn't realize Mr. Eads had left. I'm unhappy Mr. Kopp is not here tonight, too. So as far as the signs go, the intersection it's a confusing intersection. That's why the signs are there. They make it not confusing. You know, if you're a responsible operator, you see a stop sign, you stop. Doesn't matter what it's for. You stop. It creates a safe environment there. And all the signs, it's well signed. Stop signs are in the right place. The curve is in the right place. I think it's well set up for safety. I sort of disagree with the engineers on the stopping and the sign issue, the indecisiveness of the signs. I think the signs help people make good decisions at that intersection. And the traffic is predominantly left. Next is, somebody already alluded to it, I don't remember, but we're talking about building almost 100 units of affordable housing out at Blackstrap. Even though I'm against it, I think it'll probably happen at some time in some fashion. I just hope it doesn't happen so fast. We're talking about putting a roundabout at the other end of Skillen because that's a dangerous intersection. I can't see changing what has been historically. I've been there 42 years and we've had very, very, very few problems in that intersection. The only one in the last 3 years was a one-car accident. And the guy, it's sort of wrong. He didn't go through a stop sign. He was traveling north too fast, a young fella, and when he realized he had reached the left-hand turn on Skillen, he was already behind it and did a quick turn and fishtailed into my fence. He didn't go through the stop sign. He was coming from the other way, traveling too fast. At least that's the only accident that I know of. And they only talked about one accident, so I think that's it. So, again, we're out there trying to build up commercial on Route 100, put in affordable housing. We're creating issues where there's going to be many more people turning left, coming from town out. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Just the, I think it's less than 200 homes that have been built up Blanchard Road Extension. You'd be surprised how much that has increased the traffic tremendously. You put 200 out Blackstrap, and it's going to increase even more with a lot of people turning left. And that intersection is a cutoff for a lot more than people have mentioned. It's also a route from Wyndham, Standish, Westbrook, Gorham, to get over to 295 North. It's used by a lot of people from a lot of towns, that our road. So let me see what else I got here for notes. So once again, we've lived there since October 16th, 1981, and the only accident I remember is the one that we're talking about. There have been a few that my wife reminded me of before when I used to work all day, 12, 14 hours a day. There's been a couple that were during the day that I didn't know about, that she told me about. So as far as liability goes, that my predecessor talked about, I believe, I was unsure about whether to say this, but I guess I am because liability was brought up. I believe that the engineering firm is protecting themselves from litigation liability here. I don't think that they would give you a recommendation other than T unless it was a very extraordinary situation. They're protecting themselves. If they don't say that and something happens, then they're off the hook. They gave you the safe recommendation. I will also bring back one other intersection that was similar to this. That is and it's changed. They put a roundabout in there because of that is the Middle Road, Longwoods, called Longwoods, the Route 9 intersection in Falmouth. That was exactly, Route 9 takes a left and cut off Middle Road. They put in a stop sign on Middle Road so that they had to stop for Route 9 and then continue on Middle Road. Middle Road continued. So that intersection is very similar to this one where they put in a roundabout because of Woods Road across too. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Sherwin, would you like us to submit your full email, like in the minutes for the meeting? It's all still public record, but if you would like it, Brenda can include your full email if you would like.
Bill Shane, that he said that he would make
Yeah.
sure it was in the records, and I would like it in the records, yes. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Oh.
Not my thing, but I'm really disappointed that our representation is not here to vote on this.
We know where he stands on it.
She's disappointed that Ron is not here. I will just note, this was not planned. Yeah, I
Criticizing, I'm just saying, he represents us.
It represents the intersection.
Yeah. We also feel pretty comfortable that we understand his position too on the issue, so.
So does he get a vote even though it's not?
I would probably say no, but it's factored into our deliberation for sure.
Yeah, really, if Ronnie was here, the worst, he'd have a tie. If him not being here, let's say it's 3-3, and Ronnie was here, you're gonna get the same results, it's not gonna pass, so.
So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I will open it up to the council for thoughts and comments.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for your comments. Mr. and Mrs. Sherwin, you're very good advocates for your position. I will most likely be supporting the engineer's recommendation for two reasons. First, I have always personally just found it to be a very awkward intersection coming through it when I'm taking a left onto Skillings. I see the stop sign on Blanchard coming south, and I immediately think that I ran a stop sign too because I wasn't sure, and I kind of pump on my brakes a little bit. When every other intersection, as it's been pointed out, a T intersection, usually the throughway traffic keeps going, and if there's another car coming, you wait and you take the left turn where you can. So for me, I think the engineer, when he used the term confusing or like driver's expectation being a huge issue. It struck a chord with me as something that's what's hit me every time I drive my kids to baseball there. I also am very concerned about the liability that Mr. Nagel brought up. Setting aside the engineering firm's potential liability for anything, they're obviously regulated under different rules. The Maine Tort Claims Act limits a town's liability to $400,000 unless the acts of that town were negligent. And my concern is that at some point there will be an accident that is not a fender bender, and unfortunately the fence was destroyed, it sounds like. But I'm concerned about larger accidents happening there, and it being brought up in a court of law that not only did we know about this issue, we were told about it twice by professional engineering firms, and we disregarded that advice twice. And so my concern is that that would be immediately argued and potentially conveyed as negligence, and as a result, our $400,000 liability cap under the Maine Tort Claims Act would be waived, and we would be subject to all of the liability amount. And so for those reasons, I will be supporting the engineer's recommendation to remove the stop sign on Blanchard Road and just simply have one stop sign as a T intersection. So.
Yeah, I'll, as I did 7 years ago, whenever it was, I'll be voting against it again. As I said the last meeting, the proof's in the pudding. You have thousands and thousands and thousands of cars going through here every month, and we don't have any accidents. Earlier tonight, we heard from the Valhalla Hedgerow neighborhood, and the one consistent message we heard from them was, in between stop signs and speed bumps, people pick up speed. If we remove this sign, people are going to pick up speeds. People are going to be going a lot faster because it's a straightaway. It's a disaster. I think removing this is a disaster waiting to happen. I have no doubt what Mark just said is true on the liability, but all my years in police work, and I know pretty much every officer in the state, I don't know one that's ever been involved investigating an accident and been called into court because of the design of an intersection. It just doesn't happen. I think that's I just don't buy that argument for changing this. People are used to it. It provides a traffic calming device. You heard Ronnie last week say, hey, if anybody wants it, it would be him because he'd drum up more business. But taking that sign out is going to be a disaster, and it's going to be an accident waiting to happen. And I don't want that on my conscience by removing it. So I respect your view, Mark. Obviously, I'm going to stick with what I voted. What I should say, what the whole council voted the last time was not to remove this.
Still thinking.
Okay. Well, Shirley, thanks. Bill, could you,
Just thinking which way the wind blows.
can you kind of give a bit of a synopsis or kind of if we were to change the intersection, what that process looks like and kind of, I think I would be interested and I think it would be good for folks depending on how this.
Well, it can't happen tomorrow. First, we'd have to put up signs probably somewhere in the 300 to 500 foot range from the intersection that say changing traffic pattern ahead so that people are warned that something different is coming up. And that difference is that stop sign would be gone. So especially for the people coming up Blanchard Road that have taken that free left onto Skillen, that's probably the most important piece of information. So, and those signs would stay up until after the fair, so that people that are just coming to the fair that have been used to it for this way for a long time would know that something is coming up. But that would be the biggest thing. And honestly, I think a bigger sign for the directing people to the Cumberland Fair would definitely be in order, because the sign that we have up there now is like a street sign almost. So I think I'd go with a much bigger sign to catch people's eye when they come up to the stop sign. So other than pulling the stop sign and those warning signs in ahead of time, probably they probably wouldn't be up for at least 2 to 3 weeks until we could get the signs dig safed and ordered and installed. That would be the biggest change. But the change in traffic pattern signs would have to go up and would be probably flagged as well. So
I have a question for Bill too. When did the Orchard Road, Blanchard Road intersection get a stop sign? Because I remember Blanchard Road Extension used to go up and that curve was. Now I call it Blanchard Road Extension.
right.
And those people used to have to stop,
They did.
not.
Right. That changed when we kind of turned it more into a T intersection and everything up there got paved. That was probably in the last 16, 17 years.
Well, that's what.
16 or 17 years.
Oh, it's been less than that. I haven't been on the council that long.
Well, it seemed like when we gave that, I'll call it that free right turn, if you're coming from this intersection heading toward Orchard Road,
Yeah.
that when that free right turn onto Orchard happened,
Right.
the straight through traffic was allowed to go continue. So it's been less than 20 years. So.
I'll put my thoughts out there. So I think that, we live in a fast-paced, very complex world, and for me, kind of data-backed decision-making is paramount. I think it increases the likelihood that we, as a council, achieve positive outcomes and minimize risk. We've had some really great feedback spoken and in the emails that have come in from the community, and I think that a lot of that anecdotal information provides really valuable context for us. But that said, I mean, for me, we tasked Goral Palmer, experts with this report to ensure that we're mitigating our biases and the subjective interpretations that can cloud our judgment. And so for me tonight, I'll be voting to remove the stop sign at Orchard Road, which is the reflection of what the engineers said, because I think that that is scientifically sound and expert advice, and I think that for me demonstrates, decisions that are based on kind of backed with data, and for me that's responsible decision making. But I do really appreciate all of the different perspectives and have heard them. Folks might not be happy with the way I'm voting, but I have listened to everything that has come in.
Point counterpoint.
Okay, hear it.
I too appreciate the work that Goral Palmer put in and the engineers' recommendations. I'd like to just back up historically a little bit. There's been a lot of changes in this community over the last 50, 60, 70 years on our roads. We've gone from dirt roads to pavement. We've, as Barbara Garso said, we took the country out of the country roads on Blanchard Road. We straightened out Range Road. We put water mains in there. But if we take it and step back just a second and we look at traffic patterns, the obvious solution to me would be to remove the stop sign at Skillins Road, put the curve back in the road, because our traffic pattern and our traffic volume is going to increase down that road. So it makes sense to me to facilitate the not stopping of traffic on Skillin Road, but to put the curve back in the road the way it was 20, 30 years ago, and take that stop sign down and create that flow of traffic, because that is the natural growth area, is coming up Blanchard Road, people are going out Skillins Road, people are coming down Blackstrap, coming across Skillins Road, going down to the center, going to Yarmouth, going to Falmouth, et cetera. Again, if we continue up Blanchard Road Extension, we now have a T, if you will, at the road there. We have a stop sign at Orchard Road, which never existed. That was, again, a curve in the road. People just made that broad turn, people on Blanchard Road Extension further up, there was a stop sign there. So we've changed that because I believe that the engineers believe there's more safety in coming to a T intersection. It increases sight lines. If I look down on Kings Highway, that little strip of land down there, which was a yield sign as long as I was a kid, and then now we have a stop sign there, and it's turned into a one-way road. It was always a two-way road. So I was coming down from Auburn here a few months ago, coming down 231, and there's a four-way stop at Mill Road, 231, and what's the road going to Yarmouth?
It's Mill Road both ways.
It is Mill Road both ways. And I blew right through it. And I got through it, and I said, oh, my God, I forgot there was a four-way stop sign there. Because I've been conditioned after driving that road for, I've had a license for 50 years, I guess. I drove right through that intersection because I was been conditioned, and thankfully nobody was coming the other way. But we are conditioned by how we perceive and our perceptions, and so there probably isn't any help for older drivers who have lived in a community and you change the dynamics. It's easy for someone who moves into a community or an outsider who drives through the community. It's easy for them to pick up on things that the rest of us take for granted and say, well, it's always been that way, and we react. So I'm a little disrupted by the decision. I went through the whole report here last night again. I reflect on Ronnie Kopp's comments that he'll probably pick up more business if we remove that stop sign. So I don't see this as a I don't think there's a good solution on before me, because I look at what the future is, and I would take that curve and put the curve back in and eliminate the stop sign at Skillins and create that path, because that's going to be the flow of traffic. And if we want to save on fuel, and we want to save on enhanced transportation to stopping and starting, particularly people coming with a truck, heavy truck, they're going to go down through the gears, where if they just need to slow down to make the curve and pick up speed, it's a little different. So I'm going to stick with the status quo in spite of the fact of the analysis of the engineers and the legalese. Respect the opinions of the lawyers. It might have been helpful for us to have had the town attorney sign in on this.
She did, and it's in your packet. It's right in my memo to you that basically says her explanation was that our liability is real. Removing under the Maine Tort Claims Act, we are negligent when we don't abide by traffic signage and traffic rules, and basically turning down the MUTCD manual, which dictates the engineer's license. And Mr. Sherwin's right, they're going to basically go which is the safest, but it's also the manual that all civil engineers would use for design of this intersection, and it would be very rare. I would say this is probably one of the exceptions that you would ever see two signs. So in that memo, if you have 2 seconds before you look at it, it basically says that our liability or our protection from liability would be removed at $400,000 if we were found negligent, and we can be found negligent for not following conventional traffic signs or traffic recommendations.
Can I?
You got a page number for that, Bill?
It's the first page after the cover page. So on the PDF, page 19. 18?
Is Blanchard Extension part of the state-owned road?
It's our road, and all of these roads as of July 1st will become a lower category because of our population. We'll be responsible for everything on them.
So if I can just jump in on, just to kind of add to what Bob was bringing up. I mean, it is a difficult question of, you've got folks in town who have gotten used to this. It's kind of in their driving DNA subconsciously at this point. You take a left, you know, it used to be a curved road, we take that. I think one of the reasons it strikes me as such an odd intersection is because I believe every other T intersection that I've driven on in the entire country is set up with effectively only one stop sign. And so it's odd for me because that's based, again, I think as the town manager is referencing, based on the MUTCD national standards. And my concern is that this term negligence gets thrown around, but if you're in a court of law, they have to prove 4 things: duty, breach of duty, causation, and damages. So if they can show you had a duty to protect your residents, and that was further supported by a traffic study, and that was further supported by 2 Goral Palmer engineer reports that have come out from nationally recognized firms, and there was a breach of duty, we neglected that report, we disregarded it. I actually have fear that if we have 2 or 3 reports at this point, it's no longer negligence. This could at some point become gross negligence, which is the intentional disregarding of information as opposed to we didn't know, right? We didn't know is negligence. We can't really claim we didn't know at this point. And then causation and damages are the other things related to the accident. So my concern is that would be a pretty easy case to bring forward. And so, again, I think the driver misconception or the confusion coupled with this potential liability for the town makes it, for me, enough that this is something we should explore, while also continuing to listen to residents to make sure that traffic is being slowed down where appropriately and signs are being put up. So.
I will just share kind of a similar. I can feel the torn, right? I've driven through that intersection many times. I know that, you know, who's stopping, who's supposed to. I consider myself a responsible driver. So in some ways, right, the don't fix what's not broken totally resonates. Like, get it. I also, though, you know, look at data. I know what I'm an expert on, and I know what I'm not an expert on. And I think we asked some pretty pointed questions to the engineer at our last meeting too, around the what ifs. That isn't a stop sign, you know, a speed kind of inhibitor. No, actually it's not. Causes more accidents, and kind of where we have the other stop signs and kind of the flow of traffic doesn't come from that stop sign. So yes, we might be inhibiting some speed, but it's not, the speed is coming from the center of town that doesn't have a stop sign. That being said, I think we've heard that there are some speed concerns, which is a different kind of, not a different, but that's a different problem with some other very real solutions. And so to me, that stop sign isn't really there to solve the problem, and is almost like a fake Band-Aid of, if there's more traffic and there's some speeding concerns, that feels like there's something else we should be thinking about and doing down there, not just keeping a stop sign. Because again, the free-flowing traffic is the one that's got the straightaway, and that is going at this point. I also will just share kind of feedback I've gotten at first when I throw this out to fellow citizens. Yeah, why wouldn't you take it out? It's not broken, we're used to it. And then I share, hey, you know what I just learned about our liability and kind of what's not limited is, oh, then yeah, take it out. Like it's one of those where when you kind of weigh both, we're supposed to be responsible drivers, we earn a license, and yes, people make mistakes and not everyone follows the rules, but I shouldn't be keeping a stop sign there just because someone might not follow the rules. And I think there's other things we should be doing relative to that. And so kind of looking at the 3 kind of recommendations, this being our 3rd with the same recommendation, I wanted to do the study again to see if the traffic counts had changed with the additional construction. I didn't want to just go off of the last one, so I'm glad we did. Because yes, the counts are higher, but it's still the same pattern, and it's still at a level that, you know, doesn't warrant a 3 stop sign. Because I think that was my concern, that I wanted to make sure we weren't missing the increased traffic and having kind of a new need that we wouldn't have caught in that that second study. So that's where I'm at.
I'm concerned about speeding. I'm concerned about speeding, given the fact that, I mean, we're looking at the data, and we have to look at the data ourselves. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the westbound data on Blanchard Road, 20% of the people are speeding. That's like above the threshold speeding. So it's 7 point something out of 35 point something. At 3 o'clock, I'm thinking, all those people rushing home to get home before their kids get off the bus. And I'm concerned about speeding increasing in the other direction. And I know the Powells must know about this more than anybody because they live 3 houses in, right? So their testimony matters to me. I think, unless we could promise, and I don't know that we can promise that we could enforce the speed limit and keep the traffic slow, I'm gonna err on the side of caution and go with keeping the stop sign.
I was gonna say, do you want to do a motion? What are our options? If we tie and then just brought
Yeah,
up
it
at
needs 4
next?
votes to pass.
Okay.
A tie is, 3 votes is not enough for it to pass.
So it looks like there's 2 different variable motions here. I'm happy to give you one of them, if that would be helpful.
Please.
Okay, we can go through. So, Madam Chair, I move to approve the engineer's recommendations to stop only the Skillen Road traffic and remove the stop sign at the northwest corner of the intersection along Blanchard Road extension.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any additional questions or comments from the council? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion does not pass. I just move on.
Unless there are any other motions. I would prefer you didn't do the first one, to leave it as it is. That would be bad. So at this point, I think
Just move on and we
Go on.
can bring it up again if so
You can
desired.
bring it up again?
So the next agenda item is listed as the,
It fails to pass.
it fails to pass, so,
stays as it
As
is.
is.
It's going to stay as it is.
so I am just going to move, I know our next item is also going to be a lot of discussion, and we've got some, what could be relatively quick business items. So I am just going to move to items 59, 60, and 61, and then we will jump to 58. Is that okay with the council?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so I'm moving to 23-059 to hold a public hearing to consider and act on a liquor license application for Rise Pizza and Pub. For those that don't know, this is the new Louis.
It is.
And I know,
Yeah.
Rise, it's
Hope the
rising.
dog's there.
And I do know Toby and Simone are here, so if folks have questions of them, I also ask that they come too, because I think they have a great story, and I think it would be nice to hear from them as a new establishment in town.
Madam
But
Chair?
yeah.
Madam Chair, if the council so desires, I'll make a motion on all 3, 59, 60, 61 at once.
Okay.
However, I really would like you guys to come up and introduce yourself and, and welcome to Cumberland.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Simone, get up there.
So my name is Toby Moulton. I'm at 31 Gray Road here in Cumberland. I've been in the restaurant industry for 20 years now, and finally making a change to be more of a community than a city entrepreneur. Sold multiple restaurants in the city to kind of bring together something more for my family. Sorry. We put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into kind of making a change, and we sold some property to make this happen, and we're just eager to kind of bring something new to the community. I've got 2 kids at Mabel I. Wilson. I'm excited to watch them grow and have this opportunity, and just excited to bring it to the community. Sorry. It's hard to talk.
And that's part of where the name Rise came from. Some of the focus will be a little bit on pizza, but pub food too. Casual, family-oriented, everybody feels comfortable, but for our story to come from different places and just rise in Cumberland to a newer level is part of it. And the dough rises too. So there's double entendre there. But we look forward to employing a lot of people's children as they go through. Allison's kids are all going to work there at some point.
They've
You
got
know,
their
we're
apps
gonna-
ready.
We're going to bring them up right. Start in the dish pit and work your way out, kind of a thing. So we're just happy to be here. And
Like I said, I'm just eager to kind of bring something new to the town. I think it's missing. And I'm eager to, like I said, watch my 2 kids grow up in a really cool community and know that they have this in their backyard and all their friends have it in their backyard. And, you know, just eager to bring something new for everybody.
And Jim did a lot for us to get to this point too. Jim Guidi helped us transition and
As much as it was
get into this
challenging to
project.
buy it, he
Yeah.
was right there to try to help us
Yeah.
make it happen. So
so
it
having
only
his support helps a lot.
it only took me a year and a half to get him on his good side to make it happen, but we got there. And
Right, in Jim Guidi land, a year and a half, that's kind of quick.
so, I mean, if anybody has any questions, I'm willing to answer, but for the most part, like I said, it's really based on our family, our community, and trying to bring something new.
When are you opening? That's my question.
I mean, we've started demo. There's not a lot of demo, and then construction starts this week. So we've got a little bit of construction to do. We're gonna kind of make it a brand new feel. It's not gonna be the old doghouse that everybody's used to. It's gonna be brighter. It's gonna be new. It's gonna be, you know, you can't go modern there, but it's gonna be modern for the space that it is there, you know? So I think it'll be cool. We're shooting for the middle to end of July. That's the real goal. And I'm there every day trying to make it happen.
Yeah, I just want to welcome you to town, and I'm very,
I
very,
wish I
very.
was a better public speaker.
Oh, I thought you did great. I thought you did
Lots
great.
of emotion goes into it, and then you get one chance to talk to 20 people, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's not, but.
What
look-
I see out of that is that you care a lot about it, and so that's what's important. And I'm very excited that you're going to be here. I'm excited for the restaurant to open, and I'm excited to go there with my family. And I would recommend, if you are hiring kids in the community, do not hire George Segrist, which is my son.
I
He's
gotta
only
write it
6.
down.
He's only 6 right now, but I'm concerned you wouldn't have any inventory of pizza.
Like, I've got a great background on the restaurant side of things. I've got a great chef that's coming with me. I'm trying to pull my wife a little harder from her job to enjoy the restaurant as well. And like I said, it's just something we've worked really hard for.
Well, welcome. We're very excited to have you.
You can
I
make
will
a motion.
entertain your motion, Mike.
Motion.
You all set?
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, item 23-59, I move to approve the liquor license application for Rye Pizza and Pub. 23-60, I move to approve the liquor license renewal for Rachel's on the Green. And 23-061, I move to approve the liquor license renewal for RC Corporation doing business as Cumberland House of Pizza.
Second. Second.
This is a public hearing. Are there any other questions or comments from the public on any of those? Any other questions or comments from the council? All those in favor? Approved. Thank you both.
Best of luck.
Yes. You did great. I was going to say, thank you both for coming. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
23-058, to review the results of the rental housing supply and demand analysis prepared by LDS Consulting Group LLC. Yeah, do you want? So the full report is available. I think we'll open it up. Just a reminder for folks, we're not taking any action on this item. This is really just to publicly review the consulting analysis or kind of their report to us. I like to play with data and make PowerPoint slides. So, and I'm a very visual person. And so instead of kind of going line by line.
Same, but I didn't make a PowerPoint.
So I did just pull together kind of a couple slides to try and summarize to guide the conversation, depending on kind of if folks had kind of gone through it. But then we'll open it up kind of for the council if we have other questions and kind of determine what are the most appropriate next steps from here. So yeah. So these are some just like key terms that run through it. I'm not going to walk through all of these. This is more if you were to just look at these slides without the full report, you might be kind of confused. I think the most important, because it's referenced, or some of the big ones, are just annual median income. You see that abbreviated as AMI. And then actually down at the bottom where it talks about capture rate, and you'll see that referenced in the slides. And that's really just taking the percent of available demand. So if you look at kind of the population in certain buckets in the town of Cumberland or the surrounding areas, and then divide that by kind of the supply. So whatever you're kind of looking at, that's your capture rate ratio. I think another key thing before we jump into it, because it's referenced, is the study area, the way the consultants kind of grouped kind of the surrounding area around us. It includes Cumberland, and then Falmouth, Gray, North Yarmouth, Wyndham, Yarmouth. And then they also included Westbrook, which technically obviously doesn't touch Cumberland. But as they were looking at kind of where the developments were happening and that its actual proximity, you know, there's a little bit of Falmouth that comes in between us and Westbrook, but they didn't include it as well. And then you can see there too, there's reference to kind of market developments. It kind of lists what those developments were that they used as kind of competitive comparison potentials for any development on the property, as well as the affordable development. So just for reference. So just a reminder for folks, this is the kind of area that we're talking about as possibility for this type of development. It was recently amended into a TIF zone that would allow affordable housing. So just so everyone has that visual. And then the next one is just the visual of kind of the study area. So things are kind of small here, but they kind of put together some demographic kind of changes. They did Cumberland and then the state of Maine, just for relative purposes. You know, the big call outs are our population was significantly higher than Maine state for 2022 versus 2010. The interesting thing is that, but not surprising, our household growth was a little bit higher than our population growth, which does kind of align with some of our more senior housing development. So you didn't see kind of the four folks moving in, and so that's a little bit interesting because if you look at the main total, you see that same dynamic as well all the way to the right, where population growth was, I think that says 3.2 versus the household at about 5. down at the bottom, these are some really important economic characteristics. So one is if you look at our renter-occupied households in Cumberland, we have about 16.5% of our households are renter-occupied. And when you look at that subset, there's about 22% of those households we would consider rent-burdened households, where they're spending over 30% of their monthly income on rent. And then we have an additional 19% of those renting households that would be considered severely rent burdened, where they're spending over 50% of their monthly income on rent. Both of those are relatively in line with the state of Maine. We have our severely rent burdened actually a little bit higher, and then our rent burdened a little bit lower. At the same time, as you look at the bottom, our median household income, kind of looking at the Esri survey estimate for 2022, is around $138,000. This is the median income. If we go back to, I think maybe it would be 6th grade math, 7th grade math, the mean is the average. The median is where 50% of the incomes are above and 50% of the incomes are below. And then you have the median home sale price is $714,000 in 22. Both of those significantly higher than the Maine state averages. So this table is a really good just reference. This is just from our Housing and Urban Development, the HUD income table. When looking at the Portland metro area, which Cumberland falls into. So as you look at references further in the slides that talk about, you know, a household with 30% of the average annual median income, for a one-person household, two-person household, three-person household, those are the various income levels that would kind of put them in a 30% AMI bucket. Kind of some important call-outs on the right. So all of that is just data in the table, right? Those are the income that puts you in the bucket relative to the number of people in your household. Is that just under 9%, or 264 Cumberland households earn below $40,000. So I don't know how many folks are in those households, but if you look at the table, that would put about 9% of our households somewhere in the 30 to 40% AMI buckets. And then on the flip side, you have about 48% of our households, or just under 1,500 households, that are earning more than $40,000, but less than $150,000. Which, if you look at that, that's actually really meaningful too when we're going to go look at kind of what market rates are at, which would kind of be more in the 120% and above AMIs relative to the Portland area. So, so again, as we kind of look at where our household breakup, when we look at that data that the consultant firm came up with relative to this income table, you've got 9% that are in the 30 to 40% AMIs, and then you have just under 50% that are really in that 50 to kind of 100 to 110% AMI. This is a summary of a couple tables that the consultants put in kind of the full packet, and it's comparing two things. So you've got the market rate. So if you were going to go out and try to rent a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 3-bedroom in that study area that I kind of talked about, those surrounding communities, what you would have to pay. There was only one development that offered a 3-bedroom, so that's why you see the same $3,300 for all three of those, the low, the high, and the average. But you can kind of see we're sitting for a 1-bedroom at about $1,900, a 2-bedroom at $2,500, and then the 3-bedroom at $3,300. And then I went out onto the Maine HUD website and kind of looked at what they would determine as kind of the max rent you could charge for a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom to kind of, if you were in an affordable housing bracket at the 30, the 50, the 60, the 80, and the 100% AMIs. And you can see kind of the 1-bedroom at 100% AMI is pretty comparable. Where you start to see that deviate is really in that 2 and 3 bedroom. So even a couple, definitely a family, you very quickly, even at 100% AMI, are starting to get stretched. And I should have said this, sorry. Those rental values, in essence, if you kind of go back to that 30% of your monthly income is what they would kind of consider rent poor. All of these values are basically being capped so that you're not paying more than 30% of your monthly income on rent. There are some considerations around utilities included and things like that, but that is kind of where those numbers are coming.
That's it?
Go back one. Or is this the next one? Okay, so I want, we talk about and they gave us the home purchase price as well in town. So this is just at the top is kind of giving you those same, like, what is it to rent in town versus what would it cost in a couple different scenarios to purchase a home in town. So if we take what they gave us at around a $700,000 purchase price, assume a 20% down payment, which is $140,000. If we assume that happens, then your monthly mortgage at the current average, which is about 8%, APR, I kind of picked a mid-range credit score, which got you that 8%. That's a $4,100 a month mortgage. That doesn't include property taxes, and it does not include home insurance. And then let's assume we get a bit of recession relief and rates go down a little bit to 5. That's about a $3,000 mortgage. And then you can kind of see similar scenarioing for a $560,000 home. That's kind of saying, hey, home prices are at a peak. We think they're going to come down a little bit. It's about a 20% decrease in home values. That's where the 560 comes from. Again, $112,000 down payment gets you to about a $3,300 monthly mortgage at the 8% and about $2,400 at the 5. And then let's just say you're not going for the median home, going for something a little smaller, just kind of did that $400,000 scenario. I know that's kind of where we're saying kind of affordable is in Cumberland is a $400,000 home. So you can kind of see where that puts you. Again, doesn't include property taxes, does not include your utilities, doesn't include home insurance. And that's putting you at about the 2-bedroom rental rate at 100% AMI and just a little bit under that 3-bedroom at $2,500. Questions? Yeah.
Well, just a quick comment. So I noticed that you factored in a 20% down payment, which is a very conservative down payment. In my experience, I guess, a lot of folks are not going to have 20% cash sitting around for that type of purchase, and they'll be leveraging higher amounts of debt. And so if you only put 10% down or whatever the interest, the less you put down for a down payment, the higher your rate is. And so I'm thinking these may be on a conservative side for the market side of things, but just good thing to just keep in mind.
If we're looking at 30% of income for that monthly cost, what does that equate to what someone's yearly income might be to have to buy a $400,000 home? Do you have a sense of what that number might be?
I think it would be if that average median income at the 100% is about that $2,200. If we go back to that other slide, I think it was like the household income was somewhere around anywhere from like a single person was like an 80 to 90,000 income to like a 4-person household at 100% AMI was like 110 maybe. So
yeah,
that's about
I'm pulling that up on Fannie Mae's website too. Kind of has some information on like if you put in the zip code.
Yeah. Yep. So the next couple slides are just some scenarios that the consultants had included in there. And so the top 2 boxes are looking at, this is where that capture rate comes in. So the top two boxes are looking at kind of the demand, if you will, for like qualifying households in both the study area, so that's our surrounding community, that's on the left-hand side, and then Cumberland specifically, that's the right-hand side. So you can kind of see each box is laid out the same way, where you've got kind of qualified households, so those that would kind of fit into this family description, so no age restriction, if you will. The competitive units, that's where they're looking in that whichever area we're looking at. So in this case, the study area, how much supply do you already have that meets the needs of a family? There's 332 kind of for 2023. You'll see the 2028, they also looked at kind of what is the kind of what's in front of planning boards, what are either planned constructions, construction that's already happening, that will be complete and kind of in the market, if you will, by 2028. So in some cases, you can see the numbers exactly the same because they're not seeing anything that meets that, would add to the supply. And then the difference between that kind of qualified households minus the competitive units kind of say, like, what's the remaining demand that's not being met by the competition. And then you'll see there's 10% there. So per the consultants, they kind of say the max capture rate, so kind of how much of that remaining demand are you going to capture with any type of property that you're trying to kind of capture kind of this demand. You shouldn't be kind of looking to get more than 10% when you're looking at kind of the 40 to 60% AMIs. So that's kind of what we used here, and kind of worked the math backwards to say, okay, what's the kind of the max number of rental units you would kind of build if you were going to stay at or below that 10%. And so you can see in 2023, for kind of the full study area, there's remaining demand that would still keep you under that 10% if you were to build 77 units. On the right-hand side, if you were to just kind of look at what's the remaining demand in Cumberland, again, this slide is just looking at the 40 to 60% AMI buckets. There's remaining demand for about 6 or 7 units. Right below that, you see the seniors. So top was the family, and then same exact layout, now looking at seniors, which they've qualified as 55 plus. So you can see a lot more demand when you look at the study area, when you narrow it to just kind of qualified households in Cumberland, and then subtract out the competitive units we already have in 2023. And then, as it's been mentioned, there's construction happening on Route 1 that would also be age restricted, so that's where you see that jump from the 68 to 123 by 2028. So then kind of the remaining demand, if we were to build right now, would be about 8 units. In 2028, it would drop significantly. And then if you hop to the next slide, this is now looking at the 80 to 120% AMI. And I think this was one thing, and I'll get to this in the next slide, but that was a little bit surprising, that there seemed to be more need here, or of equivalent need, in the family space. You can see kind of on the right-hand side in Cumberland, it's the same, about 6 to 7 units. And then for seniors, though, that's actually greater need than when we were looking at the 40 to 60. Another thing I'll note here is you'll notice that capture rate, the max capture rate, drops to 5%. That is, again, per the consultants, when you're looking at the higher AMI thresholds, their best practices are to kind of lower the expected capture rate, or the max capture rate, to 5%. I think that's one thing the council should think about. That's kind of an average. If we think about the growth we've had in Cumberland, and the demand, and the kind of popularity of Cumberland, and the expectation, is that going to go down? Those capture rates probably are conservative as well. So that's kind of that summary. And then just like in closing, I think kind of what came out of this was there is need in the town of Cumberland for affordable housing. The need in the town, I think, ended up looking a little different than what we originally suspected, where kind of the proposed project that you'll notice referenced in the consultant's analysis to us is much more centered around the 40 to 60% AMIs. And what kind of jumped out in this is that we have need 30% and below, and that we actually have need in that 80 to 120%, because at this point, the market rate is even higher than kind of where those buckets would be. And so that's where, not surprising, folks are feeling a pinch. And I think other interesting is that there's more significant need for affordable housing than I think we would have expected relative to age-restricted housing, but there is need for both. So, you know, as I look at it, at least for me, there were some surprising things that came out of the analysis, so I'm glad we took the time to have this done and spent the money. But I Shirley did some homework too, so anything did I miss or you would have called out differently?
Just a couple of things. The salary, the median income, that 138 number is for 2023. It's real dollars. In 2020, when the census was done, it was around 120. I dug into it a little deeper, and I don't know if now's the time for that conversation, or if we should have that, if we're planning to have that conversation more in depth at another time. I did pick out some things out of the study that, in the middle of my notes, I was like, okay, let's take a breather. Because I don't think this report supported the projects that are being proposed. I mean, the 55 units for 55 plus are happening. What is the biggest concern for me, and I'm just gonna highlight that right now, because on page 25, 13% of the households in Cumberland, now those aren't age households, those are just 13% of the households in Cumberland earn less than $55,000, their annual income. Let's put that in real numbers. That's 424 households in Cumberland that don't make $55,000 annually. And I think your comment, I know there's been a rise in population. The 24 to 35-year-old population cohort group has grown, but they're living paycheck to paycheck. And my fear is adding to their tax burden to make it making Cumberland less affordable for them, even though they're already here. You know, they're gonna have to stretch those dollars even more. So that's where my spin came off on it. But you know, I'm about protecting the people who are here, and the report was clearly said, you're going to need to bring in people in the other competitive market. And I look around at Scarborough, which wasn't included in the study, Portland and South Portland, Brunswick, Auburn even, where the Developers Collaborative are building affordable units. They have hundreds of affordable units in those locations. So I'm not sure how much I want to go out and sell Cumberland, depending on what it's going to do to our residents who are here.
I think one thing that jumped out to me too, some of the population projections seemed in contrast with what the school just had done. And so I had mentioned that to Bill, and one thing he had kind of cautioned, or at least worth a second look too. So I do think kind of having further discussion.
Well, not entirely. On page 18, I put a wow. 25% of the students in the school system are in K2.
Yeah, it was more of the like projections.
So
out.
part of me says that young families do have an ability to live here. You know, if 25% of the kids are in K2.
Yeah, I think
That was an unanalyzed, except by me,
yeah.
piece of data.
Oh,
And then I had, this is just kind of a funny, as if, in Table 6, people report their academic achievement, and it made me mindful of another study I read one time where people self-report their church-going experience, and people over-report going to church. They say they go to church more often than they actually do because they think going to church is a good thing. They just don't go to church as often as they say. And I just wonder if our community might be a tiny bit guilty in over-reporting their academic achievement, because being well-educated is important in our community. I just wondered, it was just kind of a,
I don't know. I don't know if there's been like
I don't know, it
societal
would,
or,
that
like,
would be a
social
graduate
studies.
student
Yeah,
study
exactly.
area.
Like, what do people do? Yeah, I mean, I guess where I was going with that is I think the projections that are in this study are kind of based on more national trends relative to, like, if you're a rural town, if you're a urban, like what are they seeing, and they kind of apply that. So I think kind of the consultant that the school used looked at more of like what was housing turnover in Cumberland. And so like even if it just validates, to your point, Shirley, if it validates some things, I think in general, just getting connected with the school and their population projections and kind of the different age brackets and what drove it to either say, where would this be in conflict, and let's talk through
Yeah.
that, or
Yeah.
where is it like,
Yeah.
oh, that makes sense, this is more accurate, and just like
Yeah.
validate some of the projections that kind of relative to the different buckets, I think would be a good next step, a worthy next step.
I had a couple takeaways from this report, and one of them was that I'd like to see the author come in here and sit down with us and kind of have a workshop and go through this with a little bit more depth of detail, or explanation rather. And then I thought to myself, you know, you could look at this for a couple different ways. You know, we could do nothing. We could table the report, but I think that if we look back over the work we've done over the last 2 years, we made a proclamation that we wanted to support diversity in housing, and we formed a housing committee, and they brought back a report to us. And so, to me, I think where we end up with this is deciding, you know, what are the important groups in our community or not in our community. And we can certainly say, you know, we don't have a workforce housing, you know, we really don't have workforce housing provided for in our community. We really don't have senior housing, i.e. assisted living or a nursing home facility. So I think that what we need to do is, at the end of the day, we need to identify what are the types of housing that we really want to see come into this community, and what are the sacrifices that we may or may not make or have to make, and then we go out to an RFP. And I think that's really where we really find out what's available. What you know, that's like saying, oh, I got a plan, I want to build a house. Well, if you put it out to bid to some contractors, well, no, I'm just looking at the plan. Well, we have to go that next step. We have to go out there to the market and see what we'll end up with. And so I think we've got some work to do to get there. There's a lot of information in here that you know, frankly, Allison, your analysis here was it's one more reason why we're going to miss you, to sit here tonight and just roll through the numbers. I'm saying, oh my God, thank God she's doing it, not me. But anyways, that's my take on this.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, I would also echo Bob's comments that I do think we've got some work here. I think what was interesting from the task force discussions is that we kind of learned anecdotally that there's a need for affordable housing in the community. And we learned a lot about process of how you would practically do that, right? Through amending the TIFs, through doing these different types of things. So that's kind of how you do it. What we never were able to do is really learn for which groups would this benefit? And so I always thought kind of that when I heard the term affordable housing, we're throwing AMI out, I always thought the need was here. And what this report is telling me is that there is a need. It just happens to be here and here. And it's a little bit different than the way I initially thought about the problem. But I do know from your slides, I think slide 6 was showing that 48% or 1,426 households earn more than 40,000 but less than 150. And so trying to figure out, are those folks then majority in the 80 to 120 range? Or they, clearly they wouldn't be in the 30, that's the 9% that you're talking about. But it's just a little bit different shift than what I initially thought going through that process. So I do think having the author be here either virtually or in person to kind of walk us through the findings so we can bounce some questions back and forth would be really helpful, because I think Shirley's got some valid questions. I think more will come out of that.
Just to follow up again on what you're saying, it would be interesting to see the age groups in that breakout too, because you say, all right, are these people looking to transition into different type of housing? Are they comfortable where they are? Do they want to age in place? And so there's a lot of questions that come up that I think that we ought to ask ourselves.
I think one chart I didn't highlight, but they did provide, was looking at like estimates of the percent of our population that has some type of disability, so needing some type of support. And I was talking to someone that does this, and I think interestingly that could be a way to even get more funding depending on what you do. But if you set aside some housing for support, the property doesn't provide the support, but that you're setting aside a certain number of houses that would be for folks that have in home.
Having lived in that world.
Yeah.
Those get included and wrapped up in senior, like that
Gotcha.
population is considered the same as seniors. So if you had, well, who was it that built the condos on beside the high school? And 2 of them had to be affordable.
The ones that we own, but.
No.
Well, Dave Swan.
Dave Swan's condos, and we had 2 had to be affordable. Did we have age? We have age restrictions on that one, right?
55 and up.
If they were disabled, they could have qualified under that
In there too.
senior. They wouldn't have to have been that age.
Yep. So yeah, it's just like it was interesting to see such as like that there's the percentage was of meaning, and then also learning that kind of the project itself could get quote unquote more points for LIHTC funding, and kind of just makes it more attractive too. And again, kind of looking at where is the need in town. And I think this study, to your point, Bob, kind of helps, and Mark, yours, around like what is actually the problem. We kind of had biases of where we thought the problem was, and I think the study was helpful in, okay, where is the need, and then can we help that need? Should we help that need is the next question.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Well, I found another little interesting piece of information. You can, I don't know if I want to go down this road. I'm just going to put it out there because I don't want to divide our town. But you can look up median income by zip code, and they're different. You know, and we have at least 2 zip codes in our town. The other thing I want to be mindful of is the growth that's projected to happen in North Yarmouth that was apparent in this report. Has this been shared with North Yarmouth? Because there's some data there that shows a little bit more growth happening there that is going to impact our overall decision-making, I would think, if we decide we're going to communicate.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to share with the council that a little over 30 years ago, the town council took on its first affordable housing project and built my neighborhood. It's 49 homes in Crossing Brook, and 30 years ago, that was given to up to 140% of AMI. 49 homes were built, and those prices were $85,000 to $100,000. Those prices of those homes. there were probably over 50% of the people that lived there either worked for the municipality, had roots with this municipality, or worked in municipal or state government. It was pretty impressive when you'd go in the neighborhood, in new neighborhoods, you'd meet everybody. It's really exciting, and it was exciting to be a part of that neighborhood. It really was. It was a deliberate act by the council. They basically required the neighborhood to put a silent second mortgage on every home. It was a $20,000 silent second mortgage that was attached to each home, and that basically collected $800 a year in interest. And that was to go to offset recreation and open space expenses as well. So it worked really well for a while until houses expanded and got to be more or less unaffordable. By Cumberland standards, they are still very affordable. I mean, there are no houses in my neighborhood that are $700,000, but most of them are probably in the $350 to $550 range today. Fast forward to today, the planning board is going to be listening to a project in the next couple weeks from David Chase that's going to be the first mixed neighborhood that I guess is the best way I can describe it, where there'll be market rate homes that are probably in the $550,000 to $600,000 range, and half the homes there will be 140% of AMI, or I think it's 36 homes, and that'll be right around $430,000. So it's a huge jump in price, but the private sector again is trying to help with some of our assistance because of the water main. In Crossing Brook, the standards of the roads were reduced, some of the construction standards were reduced, but the homes, once they sold, the town would get the $20,000 silent second. And that's 49 homes. So we've been able to do a lot of things with open space, with a lot of things without bonding, a lot of the improvements at Twin Brook, some of the improvements down at Broad Cove and other places, all happened because of that type of arrangement. So I'm going to be curious to see what the private sector could do for us. And to Bob's point, I'm not sure what they would come back with, but if you don't ask, they don't have an opportunity to share with us. So if it's more of the 30 and 40% AMI that could be supported, if it were mixed in with market rate. And in my discussions with our consultant, she basically said that a 30, 60, 80, 100% AMI project would definitely qualify for a LIHTC type project, and that's a low-income housing tax credit program. And those monies are very competitive, and if developers can get them, they can do a pretty good job with the projects, and that's how Drown Road got converted into 38 units. So, you know, as we go forward, I think some of those success stories I think we should be proud of, and I think the town historically has done a good job in a public-private partnership, and that's what I'm hoping we move forward toward. But it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some pretty frank discussions, and you know, what groups do we want to target, and how do we get there? And when you look at that housing task force study, what role is our own housing authority going to play in that? I would tell you that we don't have the capacity to manage a big complex, so that's why some of these public-private partnerships where they have their own property management companies certainly are really important to look at as well. So lots of data, lots of information. I think it was an eye-opening report because I too was surprised that, you know, when we started this journey, we were looking at 60% AMI, and that was going to be the target. And she said, no, that's not your target. It's lower and higher. And if you went at 60% AMI, you may find some, you know, vacancy rates that really can't support a good project. So I think for me, I will reach out to the consultant, find out what date she's available. I assume you want to try to align it with a council meeting if possible, but that might be like a 5:30 start so that, you know, we can have some time, and if you're comfortable with that, I'll shoot for those Mondays coming up and we'll go from there. But we'd love to recruit you, Allison, as well.
Ted, please.
thought the data was amazing, as we've all kind of alluded to, but my kind of key takeaway from this was the 264 households who earn less than $40,000 a year, and the 200 renter households in Cumberland who are under financial strain to meet their basic housing needs. And so for me, I think something that we could also consider, because I know we've talked a little bit about what the role of the communication committee is moving forward, is, for me, I think that we need to be relentless about the ways we can support those groups within our community. We have the food pantry, we have the heating assistance program, we have the property tax freezing programs. I mean, are we confident that people know about these and are taking advantage of them? And Shirley, one of the biggest things that you've said over time is that you need to reapply year after year for a lot of these things. Are we giving them a heads up that these deadlines are coming?
They may change that.
What?
There was legislation to change that they didn't have to reapply every year.
Well,
But
fingers
Mark
crossed
will
that they
keep us
do.
posted.
There's a slew of bills focusing, that's one of them, but yeah, she's right. Yeah, there's a slew of bills on that.
And I think that it's so easy to look at these, 50-page reports, and yes, there are data points, but there are also people behind every single one, and there are neighbors, and figuring out how we can connect with them and make sure that they are taking advantage of the current things that we have in place, I think could be a good priority for us.
I can share my data with you if you'd like to look at it, or my analysis of the analysis, if you want to take one. And
Yes.
these are just, if anything, it gives you insight into what popped to me.
I was going to say the inner workings of Shirley Story King's brain.
Oh, man.
And there was an error on page 23. There have been homes built in Cumberland since 2014. It reports no.
0. I was like,
No homes.
Yeah, on maybe a given day.
yeah.
I think 10 have been built in Storyland, so.
Yeah. That's what, there were a couple, little things. So I think having the consultant and
Yeah.
I think I'm looking at some of the.
They put those in just to see if we were reading.
Right. I was with you. I think would just be good to better understand some of the projections and things like that, of kind of how they came to it, so that we can kind of bounce that up against other studies too. All right, so I think the action is to kind of continue the discussion, and it will be noticed kind of the next workshop, and obviously, please feel free to come and listen, and we'll continue the conversation. All right. Moving to 23-062, to hold a public hearing to consider to consider proposed amendments to Article 2, Town Council, Section 5, Induction of Council into Office of the Town Charter. So the modification, again, would be in Section 5. Today, it specifically reads that the council shall meet at the municipal building on the first Monday following the regular town election, and just kind of stops there and at said meeting, councilors will be sworn in, or councilor-elects. And so the modified language would be the first Monday following the regular town election that is a regular business day of the town hall. And so at the time of the charter, Juneteenth was not a recognized holiday, and kind of where June election falls fairly often, the way the charter reads today would force the council to meet on Juneteenth, which is a holiday for the town hall, for the town of Cumberland. And so this would just allow that flexibility when needed for the council. So this is just to kind of continue through the process. Any charter change would be on the November November ballot for residents to vote on. But any questions?
Will there be an explanation as to why we're seeking the charter change with the ballot information?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I want people to know why.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a public hearing. Any questions or comments from the public? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll give you a motion.
Thank you.
I move to approve the proposed amendments to Article 2, Town Council, Section 5, induction of council into office of the town charter, and be it ordered that the proposed amendment to Article 2, Town Council, Section 5, induction of council into office of the town charter, as presented at this meeting, be placed on the ballot for November 7th, 2023 election, and that the proposed amendment be printed in its entirety on the ballot. The proposed amendment shall be effective November 8th, 2023.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the council? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. 23-063, to consider and act on amendments to Chapter 242, Stormwater Management of the Cumberland Code. And for this, I will throw it to the town manager.
Madam Chair, this is strictly housekeeping. We have a 5-year permit with the EPA and the Maine DEP for stormwater management. This is additional cleanup language, as you saw in the text, and staff is recommending approval, but begrudgingly, so.
The woman from the DEP,
She's a consultant, the one that works for us.
she apologized because
I
we should have done,
serious.
we made amendments to this ordinance earlier, but she didn't catch that we had left these out, and she has since caught that we had left them out. So she recommended these changes to put us in compliance. That's
Full
why it's a
compliance.
little late.
I will give you a motion, Madam Chair, if you're looking for one. I move to amend Chapter 242, Stormwater Management of the Cumberland Code.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Moving to new business. Mr. Manager?
I'm all set, thank you.
Shirley, start with you.
New business, you're starting with me?
I am.
Okay. The first thing I'd like to report on is that since our last meeting, I went to the GPCOG Summit, and the keynote speaker was someone from the Developers Collaborative named Kevin Bunker. He was an amazing speaker, and he has done, I encourage you to look him up online. He has all of these projects in his repertoire. He's got 16 affordable housing projects going right now. He's building 175 units for asylum seekers in Portland, South Portland, and Brunswick. I took a few notes, not as many as Tig might have, but someone asked him toward the end, like, what are the nuggets you need to share? And one was, you need to know when enough is enough. And then he said, you also need to know your role. You know, what's our role in the community? You know, and he was speaking to all people like me. It was excellent, and he's someone we might want to talk to at some point. He said, another interesting thing, which kind of goes contrary to what Bob said, don't put out an RFP or an RFQ if you're not serious.
Well,
Don't go-
he
don't
learned
go-
firsthand here in Cumberland when we rejected his RFP for the
Yeah.
development over at the Stiles Way, so I was kind of curious.
Yeah.
That is really good advice about the RFP.
Yeah. So anyway, that was, it was really good. And Allison, I just want to say it's been a pleasure being a counselor with you. My advice is to encourage your boys to play basketball because the games are Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and that would leave Monday nights free. And then once, right, Mr. Sherwin? And then
That's great.
once they have their driver's license, we expect to see your name back on the ballot. Appreciate you. That's how I ended up here. I said, Dad, one more term, and I can run. If you run for one more term, then I'll run when you're done.
I don't have anything tonight except to talk about you, Allison. I've actually been working with one of the guys in the town hall to get you a retirement or going away get-together. So you're going to have to come back either before the meeting or during, and it's a gift from the town council. And we're going to ask you to come back for a 2-minute presentation. So we will expect you in the next couple meetings to come back here. Allison, when you came on, honestly, I didn't know you. I didn't know what to expect. And my admiration for you is second to nobody. You take the time to talk to people. We haven't always agreed on items, but it was what it was. And you, out of everybody, have shown true leadership. You take the time to reach out to people. And how you doing? Everything going good? I will never forget it. You come in, you're cheerful, you bring a ray of sunshine. You know, I remember we were discussing filling Tom's seat, and we talked about and it's true, it's not as easy as it is for a guy to come on this council. And I've not forgotten that concept and not forgotten that conversation. And it's 100, you know, I've watched you bring your son in here, and I do miss him. He may be the best behaved kid in Cumberland.
I agree.
Oh, he was wonderful. And he took, that kid was just fun to talk to. And for somebody whose kids were out of the house, it was really nice having him here. But you brought a different degree of energy, and I can't tell you, going right back to what Shirley said, it has been a true honor working with you, Allison. It really has.
Appreciate it.
Oh, Madam Chair, I will get rid of the formality stuff first. So just to let everybody know, on the legislative side of things, our tax bill that we've prepared, LD 1345, was scheduled to be in the committee on taxation. That was then rescheduled and then rescheduled again. So Steve Moriarty, our state rep, has been kind of updating us on that. Michael Allen, who is the Associate Commissioner for Tax Policy for the Mills administration, had some comments about the bill during testimony, concerned about how it may overlap and affect other current tax bills that are on the record. Our town attorney has gone through kind of line by line with a fine-tooth comb and has prepared responses, which I have reviewed and agree with, kind of countering those comments or responding to those comments, I guess. And so I believe Representative Moriarty will be passing that information along to the folks of the committee there to see what happens there. But on a more somber note, but excited for you, but a somber note, as it is your last day, I wanted to just really to take a moment and to recognize Allison and her accomplishments on the council and how much she will be sorely missed moving forward. I have to say, on a personal note, Allison, you are one of the reasons that I'm even sitting up here right now, because 3 years ago I saw Allison run a campaign, a very positive, forward-thinking campaign, as someone who was maybe not born here or raised here, and I thought, wow, this is a slight ray of hope that maybe this is possible, that someday I could run or pull papers myself, and it actually gave me the courage to do that. So I really want to thank you for showing me that it's possible. And giving me that opportunity. So, but once in office, Allison has done a fantastic job really bringing together, listening to folks, as Mike said, making sure that everyone feels heard, regardless of the issue or how the vote plays out. Also, your work on smashing the stigma and bringing awareness to mental health issues in our community has been paramount. Your diligent and thoughtful work on the town survey, where over 5,000 people responded. I think anybody who hears of a town of 8,500 to 5,000 people respond to a survey, that's really helped shine some light on our community, how it's changed, and also helped us drive some potential policy discussions for the future. So I think that's been really important. You also have an unbelievably quick grasp of anything Excel or finance related, which I think has just been wonderful serving with you, whether it was through the finance committee or on the affordable housing data that you throw up there. It's just been really a pleasure to work with. I also think the fact that you have focused a lot of your effort on communication and outreach to our community has not only helped us learn more about our community, but has made everyone feel more included. And that falls very much in line with the diversity, equity, and inclusion training that you also kind of spearheaded for the town. And so I really applaud you for that, and I think that's been wonderful. So I guess on behalf of myself and I guess the rest of the counselors and the town staff, I want to thank you for serving your community. I want to thank you for being such a thoughtful, kind, and considerate leader for the community. And I want to thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to serve as your vice chair this year. And so I believe the town has something for you. Yeah, we have to see if it fits. Yeah, it's a custom chair. Just to say thank you for serving for chair for the last year and also for serving for 3 wonderful years on the council.
Stay right there for a minute, Allison.
Now the roast starts.
We would have had a cake, but we couldn't have matched your creativity.
You have to sum it up in 4 words. It's something that is kind of a corny saying, but we say it to veterans all the time. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
It's hard to top that, so thanks, Bob. I will say, I first sat down with Allison about 2 years ago, and I was thinking about running for a seat. It was the day after, it was like 2 days after New Year's. We were both a little tired, I think. And to kind of, Mike already alluded to this, but I think, you know, being a female and on the younger side, sometimes you don't always have quite the confidence and the courage and maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome, you know, what's that? And you kind of, from the beginning, and even though I didn't end up running at that time, really kind of helped me believe in myself. And then when I was appointed, you sat down with me again at the same place and were just so thoughtful, not only in your encouragement and your confidence that, hey, you know, you can do this, but also just kind of bringing me up to speed and into the fray and being inclusive and making sure that, you know, I had advice as to how to approach things and, you know, how to think about problems and what those different kind of myriad of factors are and how to kind of find, you know, a decision or a perspective that feels good to you as well as to everyone that you're representing. And to ask a lot of questions and be curious. And I love you to pieces. I was lucky that you were my friend prior to this, and I'm walking away with an even better one. So thank you for everything.
Well said.
And Allison, from the town staff standpoint, you have been an amazing leader. You've been somebody that my 3 little granddaughters loved watching you on Memorial Day up there. And they also said to me, Papa, she's a much better speaker than you. So, you really set a shining example for our future leaders as well. So on behalf of my staff here, Brenda, and the whole team in Cumberland, we really wish you the best. And I think, like Shirley said, when those kids get their driver's licenses, we want to see you back. So thank you, and don't be a stranger.
That's not how it works.
Thank you all. I know I already said my words, but I will just say again, yes, life gets busy, but you run for 3 years, and life might take you in different places, and they don't have to be consecutive. And I just, again, I will value these last 3 years. They are like, they will stay with me for a long time. And I thank all of you so much for all that you have given me and allowed me to give as well. So thank you. And with that, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Bang that gavel, Allison.
Oh, yeah, bang it. Adjourned.
There you go.